The dense fog clung to the ground like a restless ghost, shifting with every whispered gust. Sergeant Mark Thorne's visor flickered with static as he scanned the twisted foliage surrounding him. He tapped the side of his helmet in frustration, but the malfunction persisted, distorting the shapes around him into a blur of green and gray. "Thorne, you picking up on anything?" A voice crackled in his earpiece. Private Aaron Tully's tone was laced with equal parts anxiety and eagerness. "Nothing yet," Thorne replied, though he could sense an unsettling presence nearby. "Stay sharp, Tully. There's something off about this place." Around him, his squad fanned out, moving cautiously through the thick undergrowth of the alien jungle. The mission was supposed to be straightforward, a quick reconnaissance to assess this uncharted world for resources. Yet the silence felt unnatural, oppressive even, as though the jungle itself held its breath. Just then, a flicker caught the corner of Thorne's vision, a shadow that slithered between the trees, gone before he could focus on it. He halted, raising a fist to signal the team. "Hold position," he whispered, scanning the shadows intently. His heart drummed, each beat louder than the last, as he strained to catch another glimpse of the shape. "Did you see that?" whispered Corporal Jenna Reyes, her voice barely audible as she crept up beside him. Thorne nodded, eyes narrowing. "Something's moving out there, but it's... I don't know, it's like it's there and not there. Keep your guard up." They waited, the only sounds their quiet breaths and the faint hum of their equipment. The fog curled around them, thickening, and a faint scent, something earthy and metallic, seeped into Thorne's nose. It was unlike anything he'd smelled before, a smell that hinted at decay and life interwoven. Suddenly, a metallic clang rang out, followed by a low, rumbling growl that vibrated through the ground beneath their boots. Tully's panicked voice burst through the comms. "Sarge, something just knocked over my pack. It's like it's watching us, waiting." "Hold your position, Tully!" Thorne commanded, forcing a calm into his voice he didn't feel. "Stay close and keep your weapons ready. This isn't the time to lose your head." He could sense the squad's tension rising, each of them primed like tightly coiled springs. Thorne took a slow breath, forcing himself to focus. The shadows seemed to deepen, and he could feel that unseen presence circling, studying, as if testing their resolve. "Sergeant," Reyes whispered, her hand trembling as she pointed into the mist. "Look!" Ahead, barely visible through the fog, was a set of massive footprints, each one sinking deep into the soft ground. They were too large and too defined to be anything human, and they stretched off into the underbrush, leading into the heart of the jungle. Thorne clenched his jaw, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. This was supposed to be a standard recon mission, yet every instinct screamed that they were outmatched here. Whatever left those tracks was big, intelligent, even. The idea of facing an unknown alien predator was enough to send a chill down his spine, but he knew retreat wasn't an option. They'd come too far. "We move forward," he said, voice steady, hiding his own unease. "Stay close, and don't make any sudden movements. Whatever this thing is, it's watching us, and I don't think it's friendly." The squad moved in unison, weapons drawn, eyes darting in every direction. Each step felt heavier than the last, the silence around them thickening like a living thing. Reyes stayed at his side, her face pale beneath the helmet, her gaze flickering to the fog, as if expecting the creature to materialize any second. Without warning, a sound pierced the silence, a low, rhythmic clicking that seemed to come from all directions at once. It was a sound that prickled the skin, like bones tapping against each other. Thorne felt a bead of sweat roll down his neck, the realization dawning that whatever this creature was, it wasn't just a mindless predator. It was toying with them, testing their nerves. "Tully," Thorne murmured into the comms. "Stay calm. We're not alone out here, and whatever's out there is studying us just as much as we're studying it." The clicking intensified, echoing through the trees like an ominous drumbeat. Thorne tightened his grip on his weapon, heart hammering. He knew, instinctively, that they were walking into a trap. But turning back now would mean abandoning their mission and worse, admitting that whatever lurked in these shadows had already won. "Eyes up, everyone," he whispered, his voice a low, steady anchor against the encroaching fear. Stay together. Whatever happens, we face it as a team. The fog thickened, swallowing them deeper into the alien jungle, and Thorn felt the weight of countless unseen eyes watching, waiting, biding their time. The clicking grew louder, bouncing off the twisted trunks and thick, low-hanging branches. The sound seemed to reverberate through the air, amplifying the unease settling like lead in Sergeant Thorn's gut. He motioned for the team to tighten formation, feeling their tension like a cord pulled to the breaking point. Stay alert. Whatever's making that noise knows we're here, he murmured, his voice barely more than a breath over the calms. The squad advanced, each step deliberate and measured. Tully took the rear, scanning their path with wide eyes. Reyes kept close to Thorn's left, her grip white-knuckled on her rifle. Every rustle of leaves, every shift of shadow, made them pause, their senses on high alert as the oppressive silence of the jungle pressed in on them. Anyone else getting the feeling we're walking into something we can't see? Tully's voice was tight, almost pleading. It's not a feeling, Tully, Thorn replied grimly. We are walking into something. Stay sharp. They trudged deeper, the air thick and humid, clinging to their skin and making each breath feel labored. There was a subtle shift in the atmosphere, a kind of oppressive weight that seemed to intensify as they pressed forward. Thorn's mind raced, calculating, assessing. They couldn't afford a head-on confrontation with whatever lurked here, not without understanding what they were dealing with. Suddenly, a series of clicks sounded from their right flank, followed by an answering set from the left. The clicking was no longer a single, disembodied sound, it was a chorus, synchronized, as though the jungle itself had joined forces against them. Eyes on both sides, Thorn commanded, swinging his rifle in a slow arc. The fog was so dense now that visibility had dwindled to mere feet. Shadows flickered at the edges of his vision, like phantoms taunting them, staying just beyond the reach of their flashlights. Sergeant, this isn't right, Reyes whispered, her voice trembling. This thing, whatever it is, it's playing with us. Thorn tightened his jaw. She was right. They were no longer the hunters. They had become the prey, led into a web without understanding how vast or dangerous it was. Keep it together, Reyes, he said, pushing as much calm as he could muster into his tone. We're not out yet. We stick to the plan, watch each other's backs. They moved as one, a tense, silent unit, trusting each other in a way only soldiers who had faced death together could. Yet, for all their discipline, the fear simmered just beneath the surface, clawing at their nerves, making every movement feel weighted with impending danger. A sharp snap from ahead made them all freeze. Thorn raised a hand to halt the team, his pulse thundering in his ears. A shape loomed in the mist, tall and monstrous, blending with the shadows but undeniably there. It was massive, with a strange, segmented form that twisted as it moved. He could see its silhouette, the alien form unlike anything they'd encountered before, shifting in the shadows like a living nightmare. Everyone down! Thorn hissed, gesturing for cover. The team dropped, pressing themselves against the dense vegetation, barely daring to breathe. The creature, or creatures, moved closer, emitting that same rhythmic clicking, now accompanied by a low, guttural hum that seemed to vibrate through the ground beneath them. Thorn tightened his grip on his rifle, every instinct urging him to fire, to do something, but he held back, assessing, waiting for the opportune moment. The silence stretched, thick with dread, until Reyes dared a whisper. Sarge, if we wait any longer we're dead. We have to do something. Not yet, Thorn replied, his voice barely audible. This thing hasn't attacked. It's studying us, waiting for us to make the first move. As if on cue, one of the creatures stepped forward, partially breaking from the mist, revealing a set of glistening, metallic limbs and eyes that glowed faintly with an unnatural light. It tilted its head, as if assessing them, and Thorn felt a chill slither down his spine. This was no mindless predator. It was an intelligence, cold and calculating, weighing them as threats or curiosities. Sergeant, Tully whispered, his voice laced with barely contained panic. We can't stay here. It knows we're here. It's studying us. Thorn glanced at his team, the fear etched into their faces reflecting his own. But he knew if they bolted, they'd never make it out alive. Whatever these creatures were, they were in their territory now. They had to act, but it had to be the right move. He forced himself to think, the seconds stretching as he tried to find a way out. The creature's gaze didn't waver, its body tensing as if sensing Thorn's internal debate. "On my signal," Thorn whispered, locking eyes with Reyes and Tully, his tone resolute. "We break left and get the hell out of here. No heroics. We move fast and quiet. Understood?" A nod from each of them, their faces set with determination. The tension peaked, every fiber of their beings coiled and ready. Thorn took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision settle into place. 3, 2, 1, move! In unison, they darted left, racing through the dense foliage, the clicking and low hum intensifying behind them. Thorn didn't dare look back, the adrenaline coursing through his veins as they sprinted, the jungle closing around them like a living trap. And somewhere in the distance, a new, deafening roar echoed through the fog, promising that their ordeal was far from over. Branches snapped underfoot, and the foliage parted in their desperate sprint. The dense fog closed in around Sergeant Thorn and his team, muffling sounds, distorting sight. Every shadow seemed to move, each rustle holding the promise of death. The alien jungle, once eerily quiet, was now alive with noise, the thunderous pounding of their feet, the erratic clicks and hums of their pursuers, and that other sound, the unearthly roar that hadn't left their minds since it shattered the fog behind them. "Faster!" Thorn urged, his voice a harsh rasp as he pushed his team forward. The ground was uneven, filled with roots that clawed at their boots, rocks hidden beneath a thick layer of moss. Reyes stumbled but caught herself, jaw clenched, eyes wide with a mixture of determination and fear. Tully, lagging slightly, gasped, "Sarge, these things, they're everywhere!" He looked back, his eyes widening as the shadows surged closer. "We can't stop," Thorn replied, his tone steely. "We keep moving, no matter what. Got it?" They pushed on, lungs heaving, legs burning as they wove through the dense undergrowth. Thorn's mind raced, analyzing, planning, desperately seeking any advantage in a landscape where everything felt hostile. The creatures' clicks grew louder, as if mocking their attempts to flee. Without warning, a figure appeared directly in their path, a dark silhouette standing motionless in the mist. Thorn skidded to a halt, raising his weapon instinctively, his heart hammering. The figure didn't move, its massive, segmented limbs gleaming faintly, each one ending in talons that curled into the earth. Reyes aimed her rifle, her breath shallow. "Sarge, it's blocking us!" Thorn's gaze flickered around them, noting the creatures flanking their sides, barely visible in the shadows. They were surrounded, penned in by the alien hunters. His mind churned as he calculated options, but there was no clear way out. The creature in front of them tilted its head, the eerie glow of its eyes piercing through the fog, a low, rumbling hum filling the air. It exuded an intelligence that sent a fresh wave of unease through Thorn's body. These weren't mindless beasts. They were strategists, fully aware of their advantage and relishing the fear they invoked. "Lower your weapons," Thorn ordered, keeping his tone steady. He lowered his own rifle, a reluctant acknowledgement of their situation. "These things could have attacked by now if they wanted us dead. Let's see if they're willing to negotiate." Reyes shot him a look, a blend of disbelief and apprehension, but complied, slowly lowering her gun. Tully hesitated, swallowing hard, his eyes darting between Thorn and the alien creatures that closed in around them. But he too lowered his rifle, his knuckles white against the weapon's grip. The lead creature emitted a series of complex clicks, then paused, as though waiting for a response. Thorn clenched his jaw, frustrated at the lack of a common language. Yet something about its posture and the deliberate rhythm of its sounds struck him as an attempt to communicate. He took a tentative step forward, lifting his empty hands in a universal gesture of peace. "We don't want to fight," he said slowly, his voice calm yet firm. "We came here by mistake. We just want to leave." The creature watched him, unblinking, its gaze unnervingly focused. A tense silence settled over them, broken only by the rustle of leaves and distant echoes of that monstrous roar, lingering in the jungle depths like a reminder of something worse waiting for them. Then, in a movement so fluid it was almost graceful, the creature extended one of its limbs toward Thorn, pointing in the direction they had come. Its meaning was unmistakable. It wanted them to turn back. Tully exhaled, barely more than a whisper. It's letting us go? Not quite, Thorn murmured, catching the guarded stance of the other creatures. They're testing us. They're seeing if we understand what they're saying, or if we're just stupid enough to try and fight our way out. Then we do exactly what they want, Reyes said, her voice quiet but resolved. Thorn nodded, signaling for the team to follow. They moved slowly, backs to the creatures, feeling the prickling awareness of countless eyes boring into them. Thorn kept his senses sharp, every nerve on edge as he listened for any sign that their uneasy truce was about to shatter. As they walked, the fog began to thin, and for the first time, Thorn saw clear skies above, tinged with the faint light of alien stars. The creatures followed at a distance, their presence constant, a silent reminder of their power over this domain. But just as Thorn's tension began to ease, the ground trembled beneath them, a deep rumbling that seemed to pulse through the jungle like a heartbeat. He looked back, heart lurching as he saw the creatures freeze, their focus shifting to the darkness beyond, where the echoes of the roar had first originated. Whatever had been stalking them was now coming. The creature's eyes met Thorn's, and in that moment he understood, they were no longer enemies. They were all prey, and something far worse than either of them was about to make its presence known. He turned to his team, urgency sharp in his voice. Run! Now! They bolted, every step fueled by a new fear. Behind them, the shadows coalesced, and an earth-shattering roar tore through the jungle, promising the arrival of a terror they could scarcely comprehend. The jungle thundered with the sound of pursuit as Thorn and his team raced through the twisted terrain, their breaths harsh and ragged. The roar from behind had intensified, growing closer, reverberating through the air with the ominous promise of an unrelenting predator. Their alien watchers no longer followed from a distance but moved in tandem, merging into a single, desperate flight through the shadows. Keep moving! Thorn's voice was raw, carrying over the chaos as he urged his team forward. He didn't know what lay ahead, only that whatever was behind them demanded distance. Survival depended on it. Beside him, Reyes stumbled, her hand pressing to a gash on her arm, blood glistening darkly in the moonlight that now pierced the thinning fog. She glanced back, face pale but determined. Sarge, what is that thing? The aliens looked terrified. Doesn't matter, he replied, though the terror in the creature's eyes haunted him. We just have to outrun it. Tully's voice cut in, panicked. I can hear it, it's getting closer. His steps faltered as he looked back, catching a glimpse of the monstrous shadow lurching through the trees, a massive, hulking form with eyes like smoldering coals and limbs that moved with lethal grace. Focus forward! Thorn barked, drawing Tully's attention back. It wants us distracted. Don't give it that advantage. The jungle began to slope upward, the terrain growing steeper and more unforgiving. Thorn's legs burned, each step a test of endurance as they climbed, hoping for a vantage point, a higher ground, any form of escape. Around them, the alien creatures had adopted the same strategy, gliding silently alongside the humans as though an unspoken truce bound them in shared terror. Reyes kept pace, her gaze flickering to the aliens beside them. It's almost like they're protecting us. Thorn spared her a glance. More like they know something we don't. The roar sounded again, closer than ever, and Thorn could feel the ground shudder beneath him as the creature drew nearer. Just ahead, he spotted a rocky outcrop, a natural bottleneck where they might make a stand, a desperate move but their only option. There! Thorn pointed. Get to the rocks. If we can narrow its approach, we might stand a chance. The team scrambled to the outcrop, pressing their backs against the cool stone. The alien creatures followed, taking positions alongside the humans without hesitation. Thorn watched as one of them, larger than the others, positioned itself at the front, mandibles clicking in a steady rhythm. Its alien eyes met his for a brief moment, a silent acknowledgement of their shared peril. Thorn lifted his rifle, voice low. We wait until it's close, then hit it with everything we've got. Aim for the eyes, the joints, anything that looks vulnerable. Reyes and Tully nodded, steeling themselves, the resolve in their eyes mirroring Thorn's own. The alien leader let out a guttural sound, a rallying call echoed by its kin. The humans and aliens stood together, weapons ready, a last line of defense against the looming nightmare. The forest stilled, as if holding its breath, and then the creature burst from the shadows. It was colossal, its body rippling with sinew and plated armor that glinted under the starlight. Its eyes, two pits of burning red, fixed on the defenders, and it let out a roar that sent a wave of heat and decay rolling over them. Now! Thorn shouted, and the team opened fire, the jungle lighting up with the blaze of gunfire and plasma bolts. The alien creatures joined in, emitting a strange, high-pitched frequency that seemed to disorient the beast, making it stagger, but only for a moment. It charged, a massive limb crashing down, sending rocks and debris scattering. Fall back! Thorn yelled as the creature's talon raked the ground where Tully had just stood. They retreated step by step, keeping their weapons trained on the monster, each shot calculated, aimed for weak points. A plasma bolt struck the creature's leg joint, making it stumble, but it recovered with terrifying speed, fury blazing in its eyes. The alien leader surged forward, letting out a resonant hum that rippled through the air. It hurled itself at the creature, its limbs wrapping around the beast's massive throat, a sacrificial maneuver that allowed the humans a crucial moment to regroup. Reyes shouted, Sarge, this is our chance. Thorn didn't hesitate. Everyone, focus fire! Bring it down! They unleashed everything, pouring their combined firepower into the creature's exposed underbelly as it grappled with the alien. A final, well-placed shot from Reyes struck true, piercing a vulnerable spot beneath the beast's armored hide. The creature let out a strangled roar, collapsing to the ground, its body twitching before finally lying still. Silence fell over the jungle. The humans and aliens stood together, breathless, surrounded by the scattered debris of their battle. The alien leader, injured but alive, disentangled itself from the fallen beast, casting one last look at Thorn, a look of understanding and respect, before it led its kind back into the shadows of the jungle, leaving the humans alone. Thorn lowered his rifle, his hands trembling from adrenaline. He looked at Reyes and Tully, their faces etched with the weariness of survival. We're still alive, Tully said, voice almost disbelieving. Thorn managed a faint, weary smile. Yeah. Guess we learned something out here today. Reyes nodded, glancing back at the path the aliens had taken. Maybe we're not so different after all. As they made their way back through the jungle, dawn breaking over the horizon, Thorn felt a newfound respect for the creatures they had faced. In the vast expanse of the universe, survival sometimes meant finding allies in the most unexpected places.